It's a very special edition of Locked On Twins. It's the Locked On Twins and Padres crossover with our good friend Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres, who you can see on the screen right now. We will get to him in just a second. But the Twins took 2 of 3 from the Padres and are now going to welcome the Cubs to Target Field. How did the Twins manage to take down the Pods after losing Game 1 of the series? We'll answer all this and more in today's Locked On Twins Padres crossover. So sit back, buckle up, and get comfortable because Locked On Twins and Padres starts now.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say? Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And of course, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. I have a very special show for you, so we'll get through the housekeeping stuff real quickly. But there is we love to have you in the comments. I was meant to say that. Hang out in the comments on YouTube. We'll do our best to hang out with you. Come chat. We'll ask questions, answer questions. Also, too, second segment of the show is the bullpen when we're rolling solo. And if you want to have questions answered on that, hit us up on Twitter at Locked On Twins, at Brandon_Warren. Whatever it takes, DMs are open. And finally, don't forget to check out the Locked On Twins Breathless post-game minutes. Right away after each game, we'll do some pregame ones too, but it's mostly going to be posts. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime, our friends over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And Twins play the Cubs in the series opener on Friday, Target Field, 7:10 p.m. A couple of surprising veteran starters in this one. Sonny Gray against Drew Smyly. Check out Smyly. He's a southpaw. So the Twins will probably have a little different lineup rolling, especially with Max Kepler coming out of the game early. So he may be taking a seat no matter what. Anyway, you can catch every pitch of the Twins hometown broadcast with Corey and Danny on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Twins. Easy peasy. Let's dive right in. First of all, our friend Javier, how we doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Despite my team's inadequacies. Look, they haven't been that bad. Maybe inadequacies is a strong word, but they've been frustrating as all heck, right? They're not the worst team in baseball, but given all the hype and everything, really rough. And this series ends not just with game 2, but also with game 3, just kind of the same old. Runners in square position has kind of been the name of the Padres issues thus far. And that's not to take away from your squad. I like the Twins.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. So this was the first time I pulled up numbers. This is the first time that the Padres had played at Target Field since, I think it was 2017. There was a 2-game series, and the Twins won one of the games 16-0. And then they also won the other one 3-1. So a 19-1 aggregate. We'll talk about those games in a little bit here. But I do want to ask you, just initially, what are your impressions of the series? Because 3 very competitive games, 6-1, 4-3, 5-3. So no blowouts. The first one got away from the Twins a little bit after they tied it up, and especially too in the bullpen with their bigger guys. And that's kind of been a struggle of late. Griffin Jax has been embattled a little bit, and that was kind of the evidence of that there. But Michael Wacha does a pretty good job keeping the Twins off balance. All things told, though. Impressions of the series for you?
In general, I would say that's a good point you raised, that every game was competitive. And even despite the 6-1 loss for the Twins, at least, and win for the Padres, that was because of a 9th inning home run from Manny Machado. So the game up until then, it was a 3-1 game. That's not entirely crazy. And as evidenced by the following night, Josh Hader is not immortal, right? He will have some mistakes every now and then. But I think in general, it's certainly not a series that for Padres fans and myself, it's not a series that by itself drives you insane. I don't think that they've really had a series, except for maybe they had a stretch against the Brewers and Braves where they literally scored like 2 runs in 5 games or something like that, right? Like, aside from that, though, in a vacuum, this wasn't the most frustrating series. It's a very quality team. They've got good defensive players. You've got Buxton. You've apparently got someone robbing Manny Machado of all of his hits in game 3 of this game, of this series. So, look, it's a competitive team, but at some point, with all the hype, with all the talent, with all the payroll, and with just all the overall momentum heading into the season, you can't just make the excuse of, oh, well, it was a good team, so we shouldn't feel bad. It's like, no, like, you have to beat teams like this. You have to show up. And more, it feels like the Padres are just a solid team that can certainly make some noise in the playoffs. I'm not afraid of the playoffs, as evidenced by the Phillies last year. They weren't necessarily the most amazing regular season team, and they went super far. Same thing goes for the Padres last year too. So that's not an issue, but just in terms of that whole dethroning the Dodgers from winning the NL West, it's looking increasingly unlikely, considering how much they've underperformed so far.
Well, and the Dodgers coming up next. How much solace, if any, do you take in the fact that the Dodgers, especially offensively, I think they have one of the worst team batting averages through 30 some or whatever, 40 games in franchise history. In fact, I actually did the notes for is it S? No, it's not SNY. Whatever their network is out in LA. And they had one of the lowest batting averages for the team out of the gates. So I mean, do you take any solace in the fact that the Dodgers aren't running away with it, or are you more like, their offense has not been good and they're still leading the division and they're still a number of games over 500? Where do you stand on the Dodgers right now?
The Dodgers certainly look like they're not invincible. I will give that much. This is still a very quality team. They're still doing the classic Dodger thing, which is getting a lot of production out of players you might not have heard of, or players that seem to be washed up. In the case of someone like Jason Hayward, and then James Outman and Miguel Vargas have been really like potentially rookie of the year candidates on that team. Vargas, I actually predicted on my show previously. Before the season started, I thought he was going to be very good, but Outman is just totally like classic Dodgers nonsense, right? Like, nobody was talking about this guy, and he's been great. And it's funny because you bring up the batting average, like they're like 26 in batting average, and then, well, the Padres are 27th, so I can't even take solace in that. So they haven't been great.
The Twins are 30th, so
yeah. And hey, maybe that tells you sometimes batting average doesn't tell the full story, especially in the regular season.
Yeah.
I know that the Dodgers have still scored some runs. They've hit some home runs. The Padres were on the negative side of that with the Mookie Betts home run that tied the Sunday night game. I don't know. I just think that the only solace you can take is that the Dodgers are certainly not looking unstoppable the way that they have previously. Part of me, being the cynical, just pile of trash that I am, makes me think that maybe it's actually a great thing that the Dodgers aren't this regular season behemoth, because they seemingly have choked every single year in the playoffs that they have been a regular season behemoth. So maybe the lack of expectations is actually going to be good for them. I hope not. But I don't know. I mean, it's gonna be a fun series. It's always a fun series between the Padres and Dodgers, especially the past few years. But yeah, it's just been, you'd think that a lineup that starts with Tatis and Machado and Soto and Bogarts, that they would be able to maybe not be the worst team with runners in scoring position in baseball. I don't think that's that crazy of an ask, but unfortunately that's where we are.
Yeah, and it's a fun rivalry series. I mean, it's obviously not Giants and Dodgers, but it's the same way as saying that Twins White Sox isn't exactly, Yankees Red Sox. It's just you can only really have a rivalry with the teams you face. Impressions of Target Field, because this was only, I believe, this final game was the 10th all time for the Padres at Target Field. 2-8 at Target Field, so it's been a house of horrors to say the least. But any impressions of the ballpark, just from your vantage point?
I will say, first of all, I do like Target Field. Being on the East Coast, I've seen plenty of Yankees games there. I'm a fan. Not to bring up the team that seems to have slayed you guys too many times.
The Twins won the season series this year 4-3. So
they did. I was really happy. I was like, great. Yeah. I root for the Twins. I like their players. But firstly, I will say I love that we actually just get to play every team. Congratulations to Major League Baseball figuring out that over the course of 5 months of games every day, maybe you should make it that everybody plays each other at least once. I mean, it's just brilliant on their part to figure that out. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing the ballpark. I thought it was great. I've always liked the Twins Target Field. I always think it's been a pretty cool ballpark. I like the kind of the right field, like kind of stands and bleachers or whatever you want to call it. I always love that look. It's one of my favorite things. Yeah, the overhang. Thank you. Looks really great. Yeah, looks really great, and I imagine it's a fun place to sit. Unfortunately, it might have robbed maybe Mr. Manny Machado in this last game, according to StatCast. He had a ball.
Yep.
It was a double, but 24 out of 30 ballparks, it would have been a home run. Not complaining, just pointing it up for people at home, that hopefully Machado is at least getting it going a little bit, on top of the fact that he got a hit robbed from him. He might have had like a monster game, if not for that center fielder of yours.
Well, yeah, it was he the one with the diving catch, Nick Gordon? Because Michael A. Taylor had a couple nice plays too.
I think both of them had a diving catch to take away from.
Well,
Machado.
and to be fair, Joey Gallo had a home run taken away from that limestone too.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely,
fair is fair. Let's talk about Gametime for a second. One of our very fun sponsors. If you're ever looking for tickets, I don't know about you, Javier. I stress out about concerts and all kinds of fun stuff. And this is the place to find them last minute. You just download the app, or you can go to gametime.co, not .com. Make sure you go to gametime.co, and you can get last minute tickets. Best prices anywhere. You get a great deal. I am going to a podcast this summer called Small Town Murder. And other than sport events, you can get all kinds of stuff. It's not strictly sports. I know we're talking about sports and all that stuff. I don't know what you do outside of baseball, but again, concerts, everything. You can do it. You can get the tickets without the stress at Gametime. Just download the app. Super simple. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB. Get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. Get $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. Now, as we move into the bullpen, I name these segments. I have the opener, the bullpen, and the seventh inning stretch. It's pet names. It's just kind of fun, kind of chintzy. It's something I do, kind of like not turning on my microphone before shows, which I do not recommend. However, before I was about to leave segment one, I wanted to ask a couple things about this lineup. And I kind of have my answer, but it still is so surprising to me that Juan Soto does not hit leadoff in this lineup, because plate discipline, he's on base nonstop. Someone explained to me that he likes to see more pitches, so that makes sense. But at the end of the day, I mean, my goodness, if anybody in this game today was born to hit leadoff, Juan Soto's at the top of my list.
Absolutely. And I think that there's a couple reasons for this. First of all, it is also that in a vacuum, I think that would make sense. I think that with his play discipline, with the fact that, he can still hit for power, certainly, but just having that guy to start off a game where you're like, oh my God, I can't, he's just going to walk every time. That is certainly a thing. And I think that that's worth considering. But there's two things. I think number one is that Fernando Tatis Jr. for most of his career has been that leadoff guy. And I think that there's a bunch of reasons for that. I think it's because he sees more fastballs. It's sort of a game flow thing. You just see overall pitchers tend to throw fastballs more to the leadoff guy, because you don't want to put a guy like Tatis on base, especially with his speed. And he crushes fastballs because he's, El Nino, and he's great. Right. So I think that's part of it. I think that Juan Soto has said before that he does kind of like the 3 spot. They haven't always used him there, but that's part of it as well. And I think that with Tatis, I also think it's one of those things where you can't really go wrong in a lot of ways. And I think that Bob Melvin has been experimenting. I know that a few weeks ago they put Manny Machado at 5th in the lineup because he'd been struggling so much. And it was only the second or third time that has ever happened in his career, which gives you a little bit of an encapsulation into how poor of a season he's had so far. But like, they're experimenting. I still think maybe that's a thing. Maybe we're trying to see still, what is the final Padres lineup going to look like? Is it going to be Bogarts leading off? I don't know. Is it going to be Tatis being 3rd because it's Soto 4? I think that there's still some experimenting going on. And I think that you saw after Thursday's game, that you saw that Bob Melvin was, he was pretty hot after the game. He gets ejected in this one too. In one of those ejections where I just went to the bathroom and then I just heard and Bob Melvin's been ejected. I'm like, wait, what just happened? It was one of those. So that was really entertaining. But I think that it's a game flow thing with the fastballs. I think it's his speed on the base paths. And just overall, he's used to hitting leadoff. And he generally does pretty good there for the most part of his career. His WRC plus numbers are good. Not that he's awful in 3, but I think that's kind of the main reason for that. But again, I could be wrong. They might bat Soto leadoff just to shake things up in the next series.
Yeah. Now, before we get into more lineup talk, also, too, thank you for making Locked On Twins and Locked On Padres your first listen every day. If you're an everydayer, make sure check out the show coming up here. We'll have full coverage of the upcoming Cubs series, and I suspect, Javier, you'll do the same with the Dodgers. So you'll have some coverage of that. So if you're an everydayer, please make sure to hang out. The Twins, though, play the Cubs Friday. It's Drew Smyly against Sonny Gray, 7:10 p.m. It's going to be a fun one. Sonny Gray has been absolutely fantastic. Padres missed out on him. And I'm going to ask you, too, about the pitchers the Twins missed out on because not seeing Joe Musgrove and Blake Snell, I wonder what that means like for how this series went out. But if you want to catch every pitch of the Twins' hometown broadcast, you can hang out with Corey and Danny every game with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search for Twins. Or if you want the Padres with our friend Javier here, you can just search Padres. And actually, we've got ads playing on these channels right now. I don't know. Have you heard yours yet?
I don't think I've heard mine yet, but I remember recording it, and I did it on like my second or third try, which I was pleased with myself about.
Yeah, so I heard mine for the first time on, I'm counting days in my head, Tuesday. I was driving to Culver's, which is a Midwest thing. So
yes, I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay, so I was driving there to get ice cream for my wife and me, and I heard it, and I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. So if you are on SiriusXM listening to these games, you're going to hear us, kind of pumping up these shows. So hopefully we're delivering here. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, what's up with the gap in the batting order, though? Because it feels like there's the top 5 and the bottom 4, and there's a very big rift there. And maybe I'm more down on Matt Carpenter than I should be. Like, he had a really nice year last year, but I also he's not in the class of the top 5, and I'm including Cronenworth in that class because I think Cronenworth is a phenomenal ball player. But then you get down into the Rougned Odors, the Austin Nolas of the world. How do you feel about the balance of this batting order right now?
I think that in theory, the bottom of the lineup shouldn't matter on this team. I think that's in theory, assuming Machado and Soto and Tatis and Xander are not broken, right? And Xander, for the most part, has been pretty great this year. He's just had a really slow going of things the past couple of weeks because he was so on fire to start. But I think that Carpenter, I feel him on that one. He's been a little bit streaky at times. He can still draw some walks. I have some fears that he can't always catch up on those kind of cutters inside. He has some weird strikeouts where his bat isn't super fast, which is, I mean, he's old, so I'm not going to be surprised by that. But him and Nelson Cruz as like the DHs of the team have kind of gone back and forth in production. When Cruz is hot, Carpenter isn't, and when Carpenter is hot, Cruz isn't necessarily. But in fairness, Nelson Cruz, actually among all players on the Padres with runners in scoring position, actually has the best batting average of any Padres player, which is
nice.
Really wild. No, it's not Machado. It's not Carpenter. It's not any of the guys you would think. So that, again, just shows you where the team is at. But there are questions, certainly.
Yeah.
Ha-Seong Kim, he's got some issues at the plate. I was hopeful that he might be able to make a little bit of an extra step because he did last year. He was about an average major league at bat. But even with him, though, if there's going to be someone who's a negative in your lineup, but the plus is that he's an electric defender, then I'll take that, especially, again, on this team that has allegedly the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse at the top of its lineup. And I think that there's certainly reasons to be concerned with guys like Carpenter and Cruz. How are they going to hold up? Can you really hope that those guys can be your DHs for the rest of the year? I don't know, but I know that Preller's certainly thinking about it. AJ Preller, the madman, he's going to try and make a move. I guarantee you. He hasn't made a move in too long. I saw him walking past me when I went to see the Padres play the Mets at Citi Field. At least I'm 99.9% sure it was him, and it freaked me out so much because he was doing the walk and then talking on the phone thing, walking really quickly. I was like, oh, that has to be him.
That's probably talking to Jerry DiPoto because they can't. Neither of them can go without making a trade for about 5 minutes. Yeah. So one of my favorite things to do is called #remembering some guys, and I have the box scores from the last time the Padres visited the Twins.
Oh, man.
And so the 16-0 game, probably one I'll have a little more fun with, was Kyle Gibson was the winning pitcher. So longtime Twins mainstay. And it says Alex Wood. No, sorry, T Wood. So it must be Travis Wood. Yeah, Travis Wood was the losing pitcher. This is how it was for the Padres, though. I don't even know if I know these guys. Jay Valdez, C. Mazzoni, I think is Corey Mazzoni, and then K. McGrath. So not exactly remembering a lot of these guys. Meanwhile, the Twins had Kyle Gibson, Glenn Perkins, Michael Tonkin, and Gabriel Moya. But yeah, these things happen when you have a 16-1 win. But I'm just going to read you the lineup for the Padres that day just to see if you remember some guys.
Yeah, I'll remember some.
Leading off in center was Manuel Margot. Carlos Asuaje at second base. A friend of mine, Josh Kuznick, is or was his agent.
Oh my gosh.
Jan Hervis Solarte.
Oh, Solarte is a good one.
Former Twins
That's
prospect.
a gem. I love Solarte.
Yeah, he was a DH. Will Myers at first. Corey Spangenberger. That's a guy I haven't thought about in a while.
Yeah.
Third. Jabari Blash playing right field. Eric Ibar at short. Matt Caesar in left. Scissor. I think it's Caesar, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure, but yeah.
And then Austin Hedges caught. I remember you guys had pretty high hopes for him. I'll just run down the Twins because there's Twins fans listening too. But it's Dozier, Mauer, Polanco. Polanco still plays for the Twins. Escobar, Buxton. We saw plenty of Buxton. Rosario, Grossman, Castro, and then good old A-Ray Adrianza, who is a role player with the Braves right now. So the 3-1 game, this one's going to be a little less painful because Dinelson Lamet. Did I say that right? Dinelson Lamet?
Yes, but oh man, that name.
What might have been?
Harms me. You know what's the WWE guy? Vince McMahon. You know that he was special meme? That's how I feel about Dinelson Lamet.
Yes, I do.
That's how I feel about Dinelson Lamet. Every time I think about him, that 2020 season, and even little parts of 2018, just it makes me sad that he just got completely wrecked by injuries.
So this is actually kind of a who's who of relievers. Buddy Bauman, probably don't really remember that much, but Craig Stamen, Kirby Yates, Brad Hand, who's a Minnesota native, I might add, and then Phil Maton took the loss. I believe he gave up a homer. Yeah, he gave up a homer to Eddie Rosario it was a walk-off homer in the 10th. That's how it happened. And Irvin Santana pitched for the Twins that day. So, yeah, just kind of fun to go take a walk down memory lane. At least fun for me because the Twins are, like I said, 8-2 at Target Field against the Padres and won that series by a combined 19-1. Let's talk about your Padres, though. 19-19 after this one. And this is kind of a softball question, but is it fair to say you expected more out of these guys?
Yeah, that was that was like a lob, the lob, the jam. I will say one thing. You doing that flashback really was a nice reminder. I think a lot of Padres fans are going to be happy. Just a reminder that like the best and most exciting, oh my gosh, what if we have something player was like Yangervis Solarte back when we were arguing about Austin Hedges at catcher. Not that our catcher situation is all that great right now either.
Still,
and you forgot Franimal. Don't forget Franmil Reyes. He was on that team too.
Just got DFA'd, I think.
Yeah.
And
I feel bad.
Royals actually released him today.
Yeah. Hunter Renfroe. At the time, if you caught the right game, he looked like the best baseball player to ever play the game.
Well, because he's a dead ringer for Mike Trout, so it's probably a body double.
Yeah, exactly.
And now they're on the same team.
Yeah, he's still a quality player. Like he's gotten a little bit better at defense, so he's fine. Yeah. And then, of course, the first baseman who was the beginning, in fairness, of the Padres actually going out and spending money. It didn't work out with him with Mr. Hosmer, but I expected more. And I think that my vibe heading into sports is I'm always just going to be. I mean, I'm a fan of just the biggest heartaches in sports. I mean,
so then you're a Minnesota sports fan at heart.
Oh yeah, I mean, so you can relate, right? Like it's really tough. It's really tough, and with the Padres, being a Chris Paul fan, being a certain fan of a certain team that used to be from San Diego that I can't name in the NFL because the people will get mad at me, rightfully. But that team breaks me in half every single year. Although their NFL schedule release video was sick, I think anyone could admit that.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
Let's talk about Sorare for just a second, then we'll come down the home stretch. It's a new sponsor, and the ambassadors are your very own Juan Soto and Julio Rodriguez. Can you imagine two cooler young players? I'm thinking maybe like Jazz Chisholm, and he's already got his endorsement with the other game that I don't think we can mention out loud. I'm not sure. But, Yeah, to pick 2 young players, brand ambassadors, or whatever you want to call them. Very, very cool. And then this is basically, you get these cards and you compete against each other and you win really cool prizes. It's jerseys and tickets and all kinds of fun stuff, VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. But you play games. There's twice weekly game weeks in 3 and 4 day cycles. And at the end of the weeks, if you rank near or at the top of your leaderboard, that's how you can win. All depends on your competition and that sort of thing for what you will win. But go to sorare.com/locked on. And that's spelled just like it sounds, SORARE. Just like how you would order your steak, sorare.com to draft your team. You get free player cards, set your lineup, and you start competing today to win epic rewards. You can also get scarce cards as your reward too. So the more you play, the better you do. And it's just kind of one of those fun games where, you may start neglecting important duties because it's pretty awesome. So sorare.com/locked on. You can start playing today. Now, we're coming down the home stretch here. This is nice because I prepared a nice little script. I try to do that for every show. And it's a lot easier to talk to somebody than not talk to somebody. I'm sure you can you can attest. This is the start of my 3rd month with Locked On, 2nd time around. I was the initial Locked On Twins host before Nash.
Really? Different. I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a little different back 4 or 5 years ago, though. We'll just
He's back. He said, "I got one more in me."
Prodigal son back. And so, I'm getting into my 3rd month. I'm starting to figure out the ropes. But still, man, 30 minutes every day by yourself can be difficult. And I should probably not say that without full context. We got Twins Cubs tomorrow, 7:10 p.m. It's going to be a sunny day against Drew Smiley. And, catch every pitch. Hometown broadcast with Corey and Danny Gladden. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Old-time NL player with the Giants back in the day, and then Twins World Series hero. But SiriusXM on the SXM app, you can find that. Just search Twins. Or if you want to catch the Padres broadcast because you're listening to the crossover here, just search Padres. I think I have the pitching matchup, Blake Snell and Dustin May for the opener in Chavez Ravine. So that should be a fun pitching matchup. We'll actually talk about that in just a second, but I want to make sure your folks hear who's tomorrow. And what time is that game at? It's probably 7 o'clock local time.
I should check it out.
I'm putting you on the spot.
No, it's fine. It's at 10 o'clock Eastern time, so 7 o'clock for the Padres folks. Most people.
Is that hard to stay up for in your experience, or not really? You look like a person younger than me, so I can't stay up like I used to, and I'm going to have to because the Twins are going to play the Dodgers and the Angels here coming up. But I can't stay up like I used to.
It depends. I go back and forth because I will say, hey, the rules making the games just a little bit faster. Very much appreciate that. It is very close though. It's close because there are some games I still remember a couple of years ago, and Padres fans will remember a game that went like 16 innings between the Padres and the Dodgers. It was a Wednesday or a Thursday. I can't remember which day. And the Padres, of course, end up losing. And it's funny because in that game, Tatis actually ties it after the Dodgers took the lead in like the 15th. So then we got to another inning. And I was like, look, that's awesome. And of course, Tatis tied it. But also, I am tired. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to last. And when you come out on the bad side of those things, it's just It's not a good feeling.
If you're staying up that late, you deserve a victory. So one thing I thought too, Fernando Tatis looks pretty smooth in right field. I was impressed with how he handled things out there. Again, small sample size, and I didn't look at data to really back that up in the sense that he hasn't been out there enough for them to say, oh, his UZR and all that stuff is stable. But I feel like he looked pretty smooth out there, which is a testament to just what kind of athlete he is.
Yeah. And that's the thing is everybody was like, oh, Tatis can play right field. I mean, look, he's super fast. He's got the athleticism. He's got the arm strength. And agreed. But I've always found judging outfield defense to be so funny because, Joey Gallo, a player that's on your team, you'd think that this hulking home run hitter would be like, oh, I bet he's not good in the outfield. He's actually great.
He's really good.
Historically over the course of his career. He's had some blips in there. The Yankees time wasn't all that great. But for the most part, he's a good defensive player. And guys who you think are speedy speedsters or whatever. Not always. So it can depend, but the peripherals so far have matched. He had a nice outfield assist actually in this series that went a little bit viral because he threw the ball 100 miles per hour to nail. I forgot who it was at home.
Correa.
It was Correa at home. So that was awesome. And it was one of the highlights of the series. Tatis's move to the outfield has been so far looking like, okay, on top of them doing it back in 2021, mostly to keep him healthy, the fact that he's also looking pretty proficient there is a huge plus for this Padres team. And I can't emphasize that enough, because if he was bad out there, and then you also have some questions with Juan Soto in the outfield, you have two huge plus bats, but then to have two minus defenders, that could create some issues. But that's been one thing that's so far, and I'm still concerned. I'm not buying fully the defense, but so far Padres defense almost at every position, despite how many different, even Soto to left field, Tatis to the outfield, Jake Cronenworth to first base, Ha-Seong Kim to second base. For the most part, Padres defense has been really good. So that's the biggest, dare I say, overall plus of the team so far this year, is that they've been pretty great defensively.
Two-pronged question. First of all, level of surprise that they landed Xander Bogarts, easy for me to say. And then your early thoughts on him, because there was that blazing hot start. His numbers are still good, but for as hot as he was, you do have to slow down considerably to get where he is now. Obviously, the Red Sox missing him in some form or fashion always, because he's just, he was a mainstay there. And, they've let those guys, Mookie Betts go, Xander go. They gave Devers a ton of money, but even Benintendi, pretty good player that walked out of the door. It's not the old days in Boston anymore. And that's because Bogarts is with you guys. How surprised were you? And then too, how would you grade him early on?
Great question. I think that with Bogarts, I was one of those people who's like, can't wait for the offseason. Michael Conforto is my top target, stuff like that, like those middle tier free agents. Because my thing was like, look, they just traded for Soto. I mean, they might try to extend the guy. Like now you try and build the tertiary pieces. And the Padres laughed at me. They threw my podcast audio out and used it as like motivational music, maybe. And then they said, actually, we're signing Xander Bogarts. And it was funny because you had those early rumors that were like, they tried to sign Trey Turner. They called Aaron Judge. And I was like, whoa, they are serious about spending in this team. And that's great to see. That's great to see. Even after all the moves, they're not satisfied. And there's so many teams in baseball that you see how they go really far. And then they're like, never mind. Your Tampa Bay Rays, your Milwaukee Brewers, right? Teams that have been good. And they kind of settle for that. And the Padres aren't. So that's really great. And yeah, like you said, I mean, he started off on fire. And I think that he's still going to be a good player. He's still one of the most consistent bats in the league, but he's hitting a little bit of a rough patch right now. I still think he looks okay. And the defense has been good, which is the other thing about him. Historically, not the best defender, but last year just seems to have figured something out. So really excited about that. But hey, his BABIP was super high. It was at like 360 at one point. That usually means you're going to go down your batting average. But even still, if the overall slash line, which is about like a 270 average, 360 on base, if that stays there, maybe hits 20 home runs or such, plays good defense, that's an all-star player right there. So I'd be totally fine with that. I wasn't expecting Bogarts to be an MVP quality player, but like that second tier right behind the MVP players potentially. So I've been thrilled with him so far. And when the team was struggling, he was there. So I know he stinks right now, but out of the gate, he showed up for a team that had so much expectations. So I still got to give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, a few more things and then I'll let you go. Padres fewest errors, highest fielding percentage. And a lot of times, statistically, errors don't tell us that much because guys don't get to balls and that sort of thing. But does it pass the sniff test that this team is really good defensively to this point?
See, people are going to get mad at me, but not yet. I want to wait a little bit longer.
Sure.
I think that the Tatis thing is really, I think he's shown me a decent amount that he's not going to be terrible out there. That much I'll say. He's not going to be 1 percentile outs above average, which was not something that I thought would happen, but it was a fear. You never know if he's just going to be not great. I'm not totally buying. I know the outs above average for Juan Soto is good, but he bobbled the ball in the last game of this, and I've seen so many little weird errors. So not fully buying him yet, but I think they can be good. Certainly. I think they've shown a decent amount to prove me wrong there. I still have questions because of how many people change their positions, but overall, I really like what I've seen. And that's been probably the reason that they're 19-19. Just overall, they don't really excel in any category right now, whether it be starting pitching ERA or bullpen or run scores, certainly not batting average, and certainly not runners in scoring position, but defense has kind of been their calling card, and that matters, particularly in the regular season, pro rates over the course of the season. So I've loved that. I think they can be pretty good. I do. I still have questions about Soto. That's probably my biggest red flag.
What do we take from the Twins not having to face Joe Musgrove and Blake Snell? Obviously, Musgrove season getting off to a slow start, not in terms of necessarily pitching poorly, but just not healthy. I have him in my score sheet league, so that's how I know he wasn't pitching, because I was taking zeros there. But yeah, him and Snell, Twins miss those two guys. Is that a good thing for them? Is that just not really a big deal because it's early and those guys aren't who they need to be? Again, I know Musgrove has been iffy, but that's two really dang good pitchers.
Yeah. With Musgrove, that's the funny thing about the Padres is when they got Musgrove back and they got Tatis back, it was like, okay, now we can judge the team now that they got kind of really like the heart of the team, those two players for their respective sides. And Musgrove, his stats are a little bit inflated, got lit up in the Mexico City series because everybody did, apparently. So that was a part of it. But yeah, I mean, that's huge. He hasn't been amazing so far, but the steadiness of him, he's going to have a good stretch. He's not going to be a guy who finishes with an ERA, I don't think, below 2.5. Like, he's not going to be that kind of guy, but he'll flirt with aceness. And I do take into account that series against the Dodgers, prime time on ESPN, delivered a really great quality start. So that's what I think Musgrove is. I know the Mets fans are still, running their mouths a little bit, including SNY. I still got beef with the Mets fans, even though I literally, they're my second team. If the Padres lose, I would root for them because of Lindor. But I still got a little bit of beef there. But I don't know. I think overall, Musgrove will be fine. My biggest thing is just the depth and the runners in scoring position. I think that's the biggest red flags with the Padres so far. And I mean, come on. Can you hit better than the Royals? That'd be nice. Yeah. I don't think I'm asking for too much there. I really don't. You're
not. Random question. Do you have any hope for Cole Hamels to be on this team at any point this season?
I'm hoping he doesn't make an appearance because that would suggest that somebody gets hurt. Your Michael Wacha, he's had trouble staying healthy through at times in his career. That's one that could pop up if something goes wrong. Seth Lugo, he's transitioning to a starting pitching role. Had a good outing against the Twins, actually.
Yeah.
So, if there's an injury there, or if maybe he just struggles and they have to put him back in the pen, hopefully they're not at that point, because the last time they were at that point was 2021, and they were bringing in Jake Arrieta and Vince Velasquez. Not trying to hate on those guys too much, especially with Arrieta. He had a great career, World Series champion, but at that time, he was just a name, and he was really bad and was kind of one of the faces of, wow, we have no depth on the team, that we're just kind of throwing darts and hoping that someone has the Holy Grail in their locker and that can return to their earlier form. So hopefully that's not the case. Even if there are some fans out there that would just for nostalgia's sake like to see him. I'm cool. Go look up the YouTube highlights. I'm good. I don't want to see Cole Hamels. I'm good. I've got all of that.
How many thumbs up or thumbs down for the new rules? Game sped up, bigger bases, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm all for it. Hey, I'm the person.
Same. I thought I'd be 2 down. I'm actually 2 up.
I was one of those people who was up for the zombie runner, and that actually ends up hurting the Padres in this series. I'm still for it, man. I just think that 162 games, I don't mind if 15 of them are different in some way, even if it's a little bit silly. I like silliness in sports sometimes. And, yes, it hurts because it was, especially against Hader, it was a, line, right, barely fair ball that ends up being the scoring run. But my response to that is also, well, win the game beforehand. Yep. Oh, well, we're away. Yeah, that's the negative of being away sometimes. So there has to be home field and all these type of things. So it stinks, but I'm hoping that we'll get on the better side of those things, hopefully.
Well, take good care of Nelly Cruz for us. I know Twins fans still think fondly of him. Coming up for you guys, it's Snell and Dustin May, Joe Musgrove and Julio Urias, Michael Wacha, and Tony Gonsolin. Should be a solid 3-gamer for you guys through the weekend. Anything we didn't touch base on or anything you wanted to put out there?
Not too much, man. Look, thank you for asking all the questions. I appreciate just taking the lead, Mr. Brandon Warren, a veteran of the lockdown world.
My first crossover where I drove the ship, which no icebergs yet, but I am in Minnesota, so keep that in mind.
Love that, man. And honestly, I still like that Twins team. I think that division has been the subject of much slander. The AL
ridicule.
Ridicule is
the AL mid.
Yeah, the AL mid. Yeah. But hey, I still think that Twins team is fun. Congratulations on keeping Carlos Correa. I know he's been
Woo!
struggling a little bit at points this year, but hey, I think that team can make some noise too. All you got to do is make the playoffs. And Pablo Lopez has been good. You guys are responsible for the rare even trade. It's so rare. It never happens. It's always prospects for stars and this and that, and we'll see later. This was just great pitcher for great position player. I love that. I think that that's always really cute when it happens.
Yeah, cute. Yeah, the Sonny Gray one turned out good too because Chase Petty has been really good for the Reds. It's always good to see good baseball trades because the Tyler Mahle one did not go quite like that. Anyway, you on Twitter at Locked On Padres? Is that?
Yeah, at LO_Padres for the show account.
And then Javi Peno, JAVIIPENO. If people are not watching on YouTube, you can catch him on Twitter. Also find us at Locked On Twins at Brandon_WARNE. And thanks again for making Locked On Twins and Locked On Padres your first listen every day. Again, every day's come back. I will have a full preview of the upcoming Cubs series. Our friend Javier will talk to you about the Dodgers, and we'll have a lot of fun. Subscribe, like, give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you are listening or watching on, and hang out in the comments section. I love to get questions from you. We'll hang out in the bullpen tomorrow, talk about these Cubbies who we haven't seen for a while. I got to cover a game at Wrigley, actually a series, and it was like 200 degrees. And there was a stretch where Williams Astudillo, Logan Morrison, and then like someone else were in the outfield. So it was absolutely ridiculous. So the Twins and Cubs are always a fun series. But this is Brandon Warren signing off saying thank you so much. Thanks again to our friend Javier for hopping on the show. Don't forget to stop by tomorrow. This is Locked On Twins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.